Hello, Arkansas, and welcome to this week's edition of Arkansas Money Talk, brought to you by the team of Retire Path Wealth. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and joining me in the studio is the President of Wealth Management, Dale Colclasure, and co-founder, Mark Smalling. We've got an important conversation that we want to have with all of you today, and it is inspired out of an article that came out from a former Wall Street Journal columnist. We know that this is going to resonate with many of you, and I know that this is something that Dale and Mark have been dealing with a lot in this area, so stay tuned. We're going to unpack all of this for you. But Dale, Mark, so good to be here with both of you, and I'm excited to have an important conversation that I know a lot of people tend to shy away from. Right?
A tough subject. But it's literally something that almost everybody's going to have to deal with at least at some point.
Yep.
And the idea is if we at least have ideas of what we would do if
should it happen to you.
That's right. If unintended consequences, unperceived changes, I mean, things that we just are not what we're planning for.
Yep.
How do we make amends, and how do we make adjustments so that everything is still great?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the title of this article was "My Wife and I Planned Our Retirement Perfectly, Then She Got Sick." So why don't we just summarize, if you would, kind of what this article was talking about, the story, because I know you see the story play out with folks you work with here in Arkansas.
We do. We see it, very often, Kristen. I mean, because, the best laid plans, everybody expects things to go perfectly, and then life happens. And the columnist that wrote this had actually been writing retirement columns for the Wall Street Journal for decades. It had even written a book about retiring. And so a few years into his retirement from the Wall Street Journal, his wife became sick, and she has dementia, Alzheimer's. And so it completely changed all the plans that they had and all the aspects of that. And it's interesting because I read this article right after I'd seen an interview with Jay Leno, and Jay Leno has been taking care of his wife who has dementia or Alzheimer's herself, and he's been taking care of her. And he was saying, it's always, you're at the altar and you're making that, in sickness and health,
right? Yep.
And not thinking that in sickness and is going to ever happen to us, but when it does, how does that change things? And it changes things dramatically.
Right. No, for sure. Well, and I think to your point, this can happen to anyone. And there's a couple things happening now that didn't happen in previous generations. One is we are living longer than we ever have before, right? Which with that can come increased need for healthcare issues, long-term care, cognitive decline, things of that nature. Also, we're working longer than we ever have before. Talk about how you feel like that plays in to this conversation as well.
Well, there's a lot of folks out there that are working till, in at least to 70 and even past that in some cases. And there's a lot of those issues in sickness that may be deferred because we're keeping the brain active. And then we see a more dramatic decline after that at latter years. So obviously one thing we would say is always make sure you're doing everything you can to keep your mind active. But again, the other scenarios aren't here just because something poor happens. There can be the other situations where, hey, we've planned for these things, but other opportunities present themselves. So we don't always want to just look at having to make adjustments in our planning as a negative scenario, but also for positive outcomes that may come along. Again, it's one of the reasons that we want to be diversified in our entire asset structure. And as a full fiduciary firm, we want to look at all of those things into consideration. One of the reasons we always want to go through that complete planning process, folks, is so that we have the ability to plan for contingencies. Mark always likes to use the term, we want to find a way to make every dollar do more than one job with the possibility. And there are a lot of alternative assets. There's a lot of different planning options that are out there. So many times when we have this long-term care conversation, which let's call it what it is they think there's only one choice. Oh, I buy long-term care insurance and man, it's expensive. Or man, I can't qualify. There are so many other options available today through either hybrid investment products or hybrid insurance products, or just simply planning to position money in a different spot for those contingencies that may come up, whether they be positive or negative, but that we have the ability to have flexibility. One of the other particular reasons we call it the written income plan is the idea that if I know I need a certain amount of income to meet my needs on a monthly basis, but if there is a gap where I have extra income that's in place, I'm already planning for some of those contingencies in advance without really being that purpose.
Yeah. Well, and that's the point, right? You can't make tweaks and adjustments to a plan that was never made in the first place.
Oh, 100%.
Right?
Yep.
And this is why it's so important to get in front of this before that day
Right.
comes, before somebody gets sick.
Right.
So I'm curious because we said at the top of the show, a lot of folks do tend to shy away or they've not yet had this conversation.
Right.
So when they come in and meet with you, how do you bring it up? How do you help folks, and especially couples, facilitate this conversation, get on the same page, and have that plan?
Well, it's a question that's in our financial questionnaire that we send out. Do they are they concerned about long-term care needs? Is it something that they've actually thought about? Oftentimes, if someone hasn't dealt with it personally with their own family members, they don't really see it as a concern. It's one of the things that the journalist said in the article is, I wrote about this stuff for years, but until it happened to me, I didn't really understand how this really affects someone on an individual basis. How I go from being a spouse to actually a full-time job of a caretaker, and what that looks like, and then having to make decisions that you really never discussed with your spouse about how do you want to be taken care of, and how do I best do that, and when do I bring other help in, and how do all of those things actually work, and if these are conversations that you haven't had with your current financial advisor, or you don't have a financial advisor, we'd love for you to come in, because we believe that until you actually put together a written income plan, a complete process where you're taking everything into consideration, even the contingencies of life, because we know that those are very important. Things have to be flexible. We have to be able to adapt to those situations. Please pick up the phone, give us a call, scan the QR code, and we would love to have you come into the office.
Wonderful. Well, Mark Dale, I know this is an important conversation, and a lot of folks have probably been thinking, I need to do this, but been putting it off. Let today be the day that you take action. There's such peace of mind that comes from having a solid plan in place for yourself, so that when life happens, you know what to do and you know who you can trust to help you make the adjustments that are necessary for you and your loved ones. So we encourage you to reach out and schedule your time to receive your complimentary written income plan today. You can do so by calling 866-724-3893. Or if you'd rather connect online, simply grab your smartphone, just scan that QR code in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. That will get you connected as well. Stay with us. We'll be back with more right after this.
I didn't start out in Medicare. Medicare is something that came along later in my career. I started with Northwestern Mutual as a college intern back in the early 90s. And I was with Northwestern Mutual as an advisor for about 12 years. And then I actually went out on my own after that. And it was actually when I joined another firm that needed somebody to get into Medicare, because Medicare was going through a lot of changes. That's when I got into the Medicare business. And I became an intern at Northwestern Mutual through a college, job fair day. And that there was the advisor for Northwestern Mutual out of Little Rock. The district manager came over with his recruiting specialist, and that's how I ended up as an investment advisor at Northwestern Mutual. So that's how I got into the game. The thing that I enjoy most about my career is being able to help people on a daily basis. I mean, to literally see people come in the office that are scared, and there's a lot of trepidation about what do I do and where do I go from here, and having them leave with that weight lifted off of their shoulders, making sure that everyone that comes in to our office leaves feeling like they've received something of value from us.
Well, welcome back to Arkansas Money Talk. I'm Kristen Oakley here with both Dale and Mark from Retire Path Wealth, and we are so glad that you're joining us today. If you're just tuning in, we are having a very important conversation that was inspired out of a recent article from a former Wall Street Journal columnist who states that he and his wife had planned out their perfect retirement, but then she got sick. And we know that this happens, and we know that life still happens, and the best laid plans often need, to be adjusted accordingly. And I think this is a hard conversation to have, but it's necessary. And we see it, especially with folks living longer, as we've said, and working longer, that all of a sudden, an illness can happen, things can change, but you can't make those changes if you never had the plan in the first part, right? Which is why it's so important to have that comprehensive, holistic financial plan. I know there's a couple key takeaways that you also gleaned from this article that you think is really important for our viewers to understand. One has to do with long-term care insurance. So can you share a little bit about the situation from the article and what your takeaway is about that?
Yeah. Glenn, the gentleman that wrote this article, specifically states, that he had a plan in place for long-term care. He had bought a policy upon himself, which is what he thought he should do. But the problem at the time was his wife didn't qualify for coverage, so he wasn't able to purchase a policy on her. That's one of the things that in today's world, many times we can come up with another solution for that. There are hybrid life insurance options available to where we can cover both lives on the same policy. One of the huge advantages of using a life insurance chassis for this opportunity is that there's always going to be a death benefit in the end. So I'm almost always going to get to return a premium cost back. So it's not just really what is the cost that's there. And then, of course, the other beauty is if I start a plan like that early enough, Lord, I may build up enough cash to be able to use it for other options as well. So we have the ability to cover multiple lives under, the same solution. There are also investment products that are out there available as well that don't even have health underwriting associated with them. There are some providers that will guarantee a certain amount of income to us on a monthly basis. And if we trigger certain, activities of daily living or have a cognitive impairment, those amounts can double for a certain period of time, typically up to 5 years. But that income, even though it may only last for 5 years on the enhancement, still can also never run out. And so it can give us some other surety, some other options, even when we're in a situation where we're possibly insurable. So, here's a guy that had planned for a contingency. He just picked the wrong person.
Well, and I think with traditional long-term care insurance is really becoming more a thing of the past, right?
Yes.
I think a lot of people are frustrated by, okay, I don't know if I'm going to need it or not.
Right.
I don't want to pay for something.
That's
and then
correct.
if I don't end up needing it, I'm losing all of that, right? So it's good for folks to understand that there are other alternatives. There's other ways to plan for this long-term care that you may need that isn't just the traditional long-term care insurance.
And maybe it's just I enhance my income so that I have the ability to plan for these things in advance. So that may be one of the reasons I retire later. Once I've got a written income plan in place and I know what my options look like, if I'm looking for more flexibility, maybe I work a few years longer, or I defer my Social Security benefit to a later date, or I make sure I have other income. It's just simply a conversation we always need to have, because the reality is almost never do both spouses pass at the same time or even within the same year.
Right. It would be nice if every situation was like The Notebook, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. But it doesn't go that way.
And that's one of the things he actually referred to in this article is there is no Hollywood ending in this, it's which referring to movies like The Notebook with that.
Well, I really appreciated his honesty. I mean, he didn't sugarcoat the reality of what their life is now like. And I know there's another key takeaway that, Mark, you wanted to share with our viewers, which I think is really powerful as well. So what is that?
Well, traveling and doing things in retirement is, I love to travel. It's one of my favorite things to do. And they had many trips on their bucket list. And one of the things that I thought was interesting is he said that, they had done a few, but there were a few bucket list trips that he wishes he had prioritized above the ones they actually did. So this idea of actually going through, if you're planning to retire, and actually putting priorities on even the trips that you're wanting to do, having those discussions about where do you want to go and what do you want to do in those 10 to 15 years. And when we're sitting down and discussing your retirement plan and putting a written income plan together, we're always carving off extra dollars for, hey, what do you want to do in the first 10 to 15 years? Are those trips, are you wanting to do things with your children and grandchildren? what are those extra things in retirement that you're wanting to do?
Well, I appreciate the point that Mark just brought up there, because that is so much the issue these days too, is that we're beginning to get to where people say, my plan is not to leave a lot of money to my children and to my grandchildren. I want to have experiences with them.
I want to be a memory heir.
That is 100% correct.
Right? Yep.
And so if you're one of those that's out there and you've been having these conversations and you're thinking, gosh, I would like to have a plan in place where I can bless my children, not just that way, but also bless myself at the same time by being able to enjoy those experiences with them and not just, leave a stack of money for them when it's gone, because the reality is we don't know what else is going to come along. And so in many, many cases, we're planning that income to be larger the first years of retirement and then slacking off, because here's the reality. I'm a whole lot more capable of doing things when I'm 65 or 70 years old than when I'm 80 or 85 years old. And so if you don't really have that specific income plan in place, you've just simply thought, oh, I can take 4 or 5% of my income off of my retirement plan each year, and that'll supplement whatever I need to do. Or I'll just turn this on at this time. One of Mark's favorite things is if I just flip these switches on. And if that's exactly what your plan is in place, we would love to offer you a second opinion. And so if you'll just give us a call, reach out to that QR code. Let's walk through this two-step process. The other thing is I always want to make sure to make a point is I know there's a lot of folks watching this show that are not in the central Arkansas area, that you're outside in a more rural and you're figuring out, oh my gosh, how do I get into the office? Folks, we have virtual options available as well. We can do a lot of things over the phone or over video. So please don't think that you're going to be left out just because you're not here in the middle of town. We're happy to reach out and accommodate your situation as well.
Wonderful. Dale, Mark, thank you so much. I love that you make it so easy and so approachable. There should be no excuse why folks who want to receive this kind of help aren't able to get it, right?
That's right.
And you make it so easily accessible. So we encourage you to reach out. We know that this might feel overwhelming. A lot of this might be newer to you or you're not sure how to go. Guess what? It's not new to Dale and Mark and the team of Retire Path Wealth. You don't have to go it alone. They are here to help and serve you, but you do need to reach out, and you can connect by either calling 866-724-3893, or again, you're welcome to scan that QR code and that will get you connected as well. Stay with us. We'll be back with more right after this.
As Americans, we strive for better, from a better house to a better career to a better life for our kids. Better has become the American way. But when it comes to your retirement, what does better mean to you? Does it mean more income, a flexible lifestyle, better options and solutions? A better retirement begins with a written income plan. To get your complimentary written income plan, call the number that you see here. You only retire once, so this is your opportunity to plan for better. Think estate planning mistakes only happen to celebrities? Well, think again. Prince, Aretha Franklin, and even Ted Williams all left behind estates without a proper plan, leading to years of legal disputes and financial losses for their families. But these mistakes aren't just for the rich and famous. Without a solid estate plan, your assets could be tied up in probate, subject to extremely high taxes, or even end up in the wrong hands. But there is good news. These mistakes are avoidable. A well-structured estate plan ensures that your assets go where you intend, with minimal hassle to your loved ones. Have you reviewed your plan recently? Do you know how tax laws impact your estate? Contact us now to see how we can help. Don't let your legacy become another cautionary tale.
Well, welcome back to Arkansas Money Talk. We're so glad that you're joining us for this very important conversation that we are having today, which was inspired by this recent article written by a former Wall Street Journal columnist who said that he and his wife had planned out the perfect retirement, but then she got sick. And it was a very vulnerable article. It really didn't sugarcoat the situation. We know so many of you watching have gone through this with loved ones. You've seen this happen. We want you to have a plan in place and be prepared so that no matter what life might throw your way, you know that you're going to be okay. And specifically going back to the piece of the article where he said, we had all these dreams, we had all these plans, right? We didn't get to do them. If I had known she was going to get sick, we probably would have reprioritized and done some of these bucket list items earlier on. I think that is one of the biggest benefits to folks having a written income plan, because when you have that plan, that can give you the confidence to go ahead and spend the money during the years when you have good physical health, you're able-bodied, you're able to do these things, and still be confident that you're not going to run out of money later in life. And so I would love for you guys to just help explain to our viewers in a little more depth everything they're going to receive, everything that goes in to this complimentary written income plan that you provide.
Thanks, Kristen. I appreciate that setup, because so many times we'll have people that come in, or we've got people out there watching the show today that have all sat back and have run some type of Monte Carlo simulation for retirement outcomes. And the main challenge, it's a great place to start, but the biggest problem with it is all it's going to give me is a probability of success based on what my system and certain assumptions are. We use a different system that is really, I think, helps to really kind of bring everything into much more of a personal situation, where our primary question that we're going to ask somebody is what do you need in income to know that you can have this starting out as your base income at your retirement date? That amount's going to grow at a 3% rate of inflation and last till you're at least 92 years old. So all the planning system that's what we're running from. Then we're going to start with a base income number. And let's just say that's $5,000 a month. And I'm just making up an arbitrary scenario here. But what this system is designed to do is to utilize the benefits of Monte Carlo, but then put it into what we call a cash flow scenario, because that's what people understand. Folks out there all the time says, what do you need? And they say, I don't know. Well, it's like, what do you bring home every single month? Because that's what you're living on today. So if that number is $5,000 a month, and we know we can start that at your retirement date, and we can continue to increase that over time. But if we can then make these projections based on this system, and it shows you've got the ability to spend $7,000 or $10,000 a month, and these are always in after-tax numbers, because we let the system use the math itself, is that can give you more confidence to know, gosh, I can have the ability to spend more money up front without the risk of running out over time. That is the true beauty that comes with having a real written income plan in place, as opposed to just some Monte Carlo simulation or an asset allocation theory that says I can take off 4%, because what the heck does that mean?
It's a strategy of hope. It's not a plan,
absolutely
right?
correct.
Yeah.
It's not really a plan. And here's the beauty of what we know is life is going to change throughout those systems. I don't ever spend the same amount of money every month. I don't spend the same amount of money every year. What about purchasing that car? Not just the negatives that come, but we often, want to put the focus here is that one of the purposes of retirement is so that you can go live your life under your way, your standards, what you want to see happen without constraint.
Right. Yeah. So important. And go ahead, Mark.
Well, no, because we're actually running those, because we're running the extra dollars for 10 to 15 years to show them what it looks like to spend those dollars early on, and what kind of impact that's going to have on their overall planning. So that's so when you can actually see and you have that clarity that you're going to be okay, you're more likely to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you.
Well, and I think this is the really fun part of your job, right? I mean, giving folks permission to live out their dreams. There's no judgment here. I mean,
it's the removal of fear of the what if.
Right.
Because there's thousands of what ifs, and everybody else, well, what if this? What if that? What if that?
Right.
Really, we're still just always dealing with numbers. And the reality is if we can show somebody, as you mentioned, you have the permission to go live. Or it may be the other way around. It may say you haven't done enough. And then that's the other beauty of this system is it says if you want to have that lifestyle, this is what you need to do. We can help you amend that outcome as well. Folks, it's not just what's set. It's to help you build what you want in place.
Yep, very well said. Well, I know another piece that we need to address kind of that envelops this whole conversation is the legacy planning aspect, the estate planning. I know that whenever we've done a show just on that subject alone, you've gotten a huge response. Because again, I think that's something that folks have put off. They know they need to get all their affairs in order. What do you want our viewers to understand as it relates to this conversation, how estate planning factors into the written income plans that you build?
Well, just like it's difficult to have this conversation about someone becoming sick, oftentimes people don't want to have the conversation about their estate plan, because this isn't you getting sick, this is you dying.
Right.
And
Yeah.
people don't like to have those conversations, even with their loved ones. And so it's really important for us to actually get those conversations started. Oftentimes feel like we're more counselors and therapists than we are advisors when we're meeting with people. I mean, we have Kleenex in all of our conference rooms, and it's not just in case somebody sneezes or something.
Right.
Sometimes tears are involved because these are difficult conversations that we're having, but they're important conversations. And getting people to think about how things are going to pass on to the next generation, how your end days, you would like for them to happen. All of those are conversations that are necessary.
Yes,
Well, and
sure.
it goes so far beyond just the fact of, do you have a will in place? Because that's the minimum default. Oftentimes I won't let people leave the office until they've written something out on a piece of paper, and we get, one of our staff members to notarize it, so at least they have something in place, because they haven't even done that yet.
Right. Well, 2 out of 3 Americans have never even done their basic estate planning documents.
That is correct.
Right?
And then I think about 50% of those aren't even up to date. Maybe they've got bad beneficiaries that are associated with them as well.
Out of date.
So
Yeah.
that's correct. So it's literally just making sure you have your beneficiaries updated on all of your investment accounts, that they're properly structured on your bank accounts, that their life insurance policies are the way that they're supposed to be, that you have a power of attorney in place for health care, that you have a power of attorney in place for financial needs. And it's not just because you get sick, folks. What if we're on this big trip that we've just talked about? We happen to be in Europe and we're stuck. Somebody needs to make the mortgage payment.
Yep.
There's much better ways than simply attaching somebody to a bank account by giving them the authorization. But some of the most important ones that Mark mentioned are obviously that living will. I know how, so now my children know how I want my last days to be handled. And then, the possibility of a revocable trust. People come in all the time and say, hey, do I need a trust? And the reality is, you probably don't. Things are going to pass the way you want them to in most cases, but you want to trust. And you want to trust because you love somebody. You want them to be able to pass that on.
Right.
And so, folks, lean on us out there for all these difficult decisions and conversations that need you have. We would love to help guide you through those.
Wonderful. Dale, Mark, I'm excited for more folks to connect with you as a result of today's important conversation. Thank you so much. This is by far one of the most loving things that you can do for those that you leave behind, making sure everything is in order. So let today be the day. You don't have to go it alone. The team of Retire Path Wealth is here for you. You can reach out by calling that number or scanning that QR code. Be blessed. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time here on Arkansas Money Talk.